Welcome to the Early Edge NFL Player Prop Show, brought to you by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. I am your host, Eric Cohen, otherwise known as EC. Great to be back with all of you here on a Friday, or if you're listening over the weekend. We are glad to have you with us for the next 45 minutes, hour, whatever it turns into. All right, let's take a look at the recap from last week. And your boy finally got on the board here, had made up for it a little bit with a rough start, but nice hit 3 1.5 unit winners. Dave 2-2, but Proppy had one of the worst, sickest beats I think I've ever seen. A 2-unit play on Brock Bowers. He lost by half a stinking yard. I mean, that's just how this goes sometimes. But all right, let's bring him in right now. The stars of the show. We have one of the best prop bettors on the planet. And if you're a SportsLine.com member and you look at the NBA section, he's already by far and away number one, just where he finished last year. 11-4 in his last 15 picks. It is the one, the only Propstarz. And then we have the Hall of Famer, one of the great fantasy football minds of all time, one of the smartest people that I have met working at SportsLine. It is from CBS Sports, the one and only Dave Richard. Gentlemen, glad to have you guys here. Uncle Dave, we'll start with you. It's week 9. We're about midway through the season. Just your thoughts on just the lines right now. Do you see sharpness? Do you see weakness in the lines? What's your kind of overall observation in taking a look this week?
You know, it's interesting. I see a lot of lines that I find favorable, and that's weird for this time of year. I've been doing this show long enough to know that as the season goes on, the lines get sharper. And there's at least one, maybe two lines that I'm giving today that I think they're designed for you to go the other way, and I'll make the argument for why you should go against what the books want you to do.
Well, Proppy, normally I'd say, give us some thoughts, but we have so many picks on this show that we got to get right to it. And we're going to start with you. We're going to start with receiver props because we have a lot of them this week. You are focusing heavily on receiver props. I guess, first of all, before you get into your Ja'Marr Chase pick one way or the other, why are you leaning so hard on receiver props in week 9?
No particular reason, EC. Typically, I just go to where I feel like the value lies. That happens to be this particular category, so therefore the majority of my picks originate from there.
All right, well, it's time for Ja'Marr Chase. Now, this is a favorable matchup against the Bengals. Looking at him as a DFS possibility, obviously very expensive in the DFS platforms, but you like a prop of his. What is it?
I do, yeah. I'm going to go over 82.5 receiving yards for Ja'Marr Chase, playing against the Las Vegas Raiders. As you mentioned, a favorable matchup. The Raiders are dead last in PFF's coverage grades. This is a very advantageous spot for Ja'Marr Chase, who got off to a slow start this season, but has really been kind of ramping things up recently, looking like the all-pro wide receiver. Don't get it twisted. Just because Ja'Marr Chase's numbers aren't extraordinary or what maybe some people expected at this part of the season, defensive coordinators still fear him as much as any player in the NFL. He is double covered at the highest rates of any wide receiver in the NFL this season and throughout his career, number one. So that is how opposing defensive coordinators respect and treat Ja'Marr Chase. What I like about this spot, in addition to the Raiders being a bad matchup, is T. Higgins, who's been pretty much a target hog in this offense, is going to miss this game, leaving Ja'Marr Chase as the key focal point of Cincinnati's passing attack. So Cincinnati's interesting. They have one of the highest pass rates in the NFL. They pass more out of a neutral game script than any team in football. So they really play to their strengths, which is Joe Burrow and airing the football out. Early in the season, we didn't see Ja'Marr Chase get double-digit targets either. Last week without T. Higgins, had 11 targets, I believe, in the game. So that was certainly encouraging. I expect another double-digit target game against the Raiders. And if the Raiders can push Cincinnati a little bit in this matchup, Ja'Marr Chase has a massive upside. But even in a neutral game script, I expect plenty of passing volume, 35-ish dropbacks for Joe Burrow and Ja'Marr Chase to have a very big game in the process. There's really not a lot of guys behind Ja'Marr Chase without T. Higgins that have proven to be ancillary options. So it's really going to be the Ja'Marr Chase show. Mike Gesicki might be the most reliable receiver that Joe Burrow has besides Chase. So I just expect a massive target share for Ja'Marr Chase, who appears to be really hitting his stride in what is a fantastic matchup.
I'm kind of surprised, Proppy, that we're not, as I look ahead in the show for rushing props, Uncle Dave or you did not go with Chase Brown since Zach Moss is out. I know you guys love to play Chase Brown and Zach Moss props, but no Moss this week. Chase Brown, that's another one you might want to consider. Now, Uncle Dave, this is a guy that has been kind of has gotten off to a rough start, and he was really highly touted in fantasy football. The number one tight end. You got to draft him second round, third round, in dynasty leagues, maybe first round. Sam LaPorta. But now, no Jameson Williams this week again for Detroit. Which way are you leaning against Green Bay for Sam LaPorta?
I'm taking the over on his receiving yards, and it's my favorite prop of the week. I see it at minus 118 at BetMGM, and there's a lot to like here. LaPorta has been over this number in 3 of his past 4 games, including a matchup he had 1 catch in, but it was a 52-yard touchdown. I really like that he's going to be without Jameson Williams. You mentioned that, EC. And no one else in the Lions passing game really stepped up last week, besides Amon-Ra St. Brown, of course. And LaPorta had a 35.3% target per route run rate. I don't think that's coincidence. I think Jameson Williams being out helped LaPorta see more targets than normal, and I think it'll happen again this week. It helps that Green Bay allows the 8th highest completion rate to tight ends on the 5th most targets per game. So offenses have been using their tight ends against Green Bay, and they've been giving up 10 yards per catch. That's about league average. That means that LaPorta needs to get 4 catches at minimum to get over this. Hopefully not 5. I think he can do a little bit better than 10 yards per catch. It's an added bonus that Evan Williams, the starting safety for Green Bay, is going to be out. But it's even better that a tight end has had at least 43 yards. That's the number we're looking for in 3 of Green Bay's past 4 outings. Damn you, Dalton Schultz, for not being one of those tight ends. And it's just nice to know that LaPorta went over this total in each of the 2 games he played against the Packers as a rookie in 2023, one of which came without Jameson Williams on the field, which means the other one did. So go ahead and make your LaPorta potty jokes. It doesn't matter this week. He's going over 41.5 receiving yards. And speaking of potty, EC, I don't know about you. Doesn't it look like Proppy's kind of in a men's room right now?
Listen, Uncle Dave, Proppy is in parts unknown. We always know that. You never know what we're going to see from him each week. He has to hide out. He's so popular. People want to bug him. This is how he gets away and kind of does his thing, right?
Are you sitting right now? Or should we call you Propstarz? What's happening?
I'll address that momentarily. I do want to point out that I just saw EC's eyes light up when you mentioned the historical trends for LaPorta having gone over in his 2 previous games against the Packers in his rookie years. I saw EC, he was completely sold. I think he just made a 2-unit bet the moment you referenced that, Dave. As far as my streaming location, I may or may not be in the men's room right now. The only place I could find some privacy. I am sitting down. I won't say if I'm sitting down on a toilet seat or not. And hopefully the guy in the stall next to me can keep it down during the stream, guys.
The guy in the stall next to you is going to put his bets in.
I would hope so. I hope when he heard the Green Bay historical trends, he immediately ran and bet LaPorta since, he is the LaPorta potty.
Oh, I love historical trends. Uncle Dave, you made my day already. We're only 9 minutes into the show. All right, Proppy, this next player, for DFS purposes, I'm actually going to do a stack. Call me crazy. With Daniel Jones and this next Giants receiver, who, by the way, also went off in week 2 against the same opponent.
Yeah, and I'm going a 1.5 unit play on this, and we're talking about Malik Nabers, obviously, here. Not a 2-unit play for me, even though you guys know I absolutely adore Malik Nabers. I've been a Malik Nabers truther, and I think he's already one of the best premier receivers in the NFL. But I'll talk to you why it's a 1.5-unit play, not quite a 2-unit play. Really has to do with the Commanders, okay? But first, we're going to start with Malik Nabers, who's just having one of the best rookie wide receiver or seasons by a wide receiver in NFL history. He's already, if we look at his target profile, one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. And that's despite playing in an anemic passing offense with a subpar quarterback, with all due respect to Daniel Jones. Malik Nabers has been that good. Leads the NFL for 27% first read target rate. That's phenomenal. He is the clear focal point of that passing attack for the Giants. And we're talking about the Commanders' defense. Okay, if we look at the Commanders' pass defense, to start the season, they were just dreadful. However, over the last 5 weeks, they have been one of the better pass coverage units in the NFL. So I actually rate the Commanders as a defense to avoid right now. However, they do not double team at a high rate. And I have that much confidence in Malik Nabers that despite the Commanders' pass defense significantly improving as the season has progressed, Malik Nabers is still going to eat in this matchup, and he's still going to get plenty of targets and be the clear focal point for a Giants team that's missing Tyrone Tracy at running back. Washington has really kind of developed into a run funnel because over the past 5 weeks, I believe they're top 3 in EPA allowed per drop back. So not nearly the tasty matchup that this once was, which is why this is only a 1.5 unit play for me, because at this number around 70 yards, Malik Nabers should never be 70 yards in my opinion. This guy is just absolutely incredible. And that's despite having, again, Daniel Jones at quarterback. The numbers, especially the advanced metrics, the target profile is just off the charts, passes the eye test as well. I don't think Malik Nabers should ever be under 75 yards in any matchup, even in a semi-difficult one against the Commanders, but I still think he's going to eat in this. And again, 1.5 unit play for me, Malik Nabers to go over 68.5 receiving yards. I play this one up to 73.5.
Fair enough. All right. I like it. It's a good play for me. Uncle Dave, let me ask you a question before we get to your next pick. Do you like unlimited salad and breadsticks? Do you like, if I told you you'd go somewhere for that, would you like that?
Sure. The breadsticks maybe a little more than the salad, if you catch.
Well, you know where we're going this weekend to celebrate our wins. We're going to the Olave Garden to celebrate. I mean, come on. I had to give that. Come on, it's like a fantasy football team name, the Olave Garden. You got to roll with me on that. No? Oh, come on. All right. Uncle Dave, I guess Uncle Dave not buying that one. All right, here we go. Well, Uncle Dave, you and I both like Olave this week. Geez, come on, J-Rod in the chat. I thought it was good. All right, Uncle Dave, what do you think of Chris Olave this week?
I like him a lot. I like him better than I liked your joke. Now I'm trying to see if I can think of something better, but it can't come to me right now. I like the receptions number for him. It's plus money. You can find it at plus 110. Shop around a little bit. It's over 5.5, and that's a steep number. But who else does New Orleans have to throw to? Without Derek Carr last week, Olave dominated targets, worked as the clear number 1 receiver, and there was no Rashid Shaheed on the field. It was really Olave's first time working in that role. We saw it late last year when other teammates weren't on the field with him, and he did well in that role. He got a lot of targets. He got a lot of catches. Now Derek Carr is back, and the two connected for at least 6 receptions in 2 of their last 3 games together with Rashid Shaheed on the field, and when they weren't playing the Carolina Panthers. And while I don't think the Panthers defense is any good, I would not be surprised if the Panthers offense put some points up and force the Saints into throwing more than you might expect. That goes hand in hand with any over with Chris Olave. Go ahead and take this one over 5.5 catches. You don't have to go a full unit, but Chris Olave should have a very good game.
And I'm going to piggyback right off of that, Uncle Dave, and I'm going with Chris Olave over 67.5 receiving yards at minus 115 as my only 1.5 unit play this week. As you mentioned, who else is going to get passes from New Orleans? I mean, outside of Alvin Kamara and Olave and maybe a Juwan Johnson or Foster Moreau here or there, can you name another? Well, you can, and Proppy can. But most people cannot name the other wide receivers, the Mason Tiptons of the world, the Cedric Wilsons who New Orleans has.
Relax, bub. Relax, bub.
Well, is Bub even going to play? I thought he got hurt too.
Hey,
Bub got hurt. Yeah, he's not even playing. So they have nobody. And Carolina is allowed
they have people. It's just not.
They have not NFL caliber, like top high end.
You do this all the time. If they're on the team, they're NFL caliber. Just because you haven't heard of Mason Tipton doesn't mean that he's not an NFL caliber receiver. Continue.
Fair enough. With that said, Carolina has allowed the 4th most receiving yards per game to perimeter wide receivers, which is where Olave will line up. But what I like the most is that 7 wide receivers are over this number against Carolina, including the team's number 1 wide receiver the last 5 weeks have gone over 70 yards against the Panthers. I expect it to happen again, and that's why I made Chris Olave over 67.5 receiving yards a 1.5 unit play. Now, we have so many wide receiver props this week that we have to split it up. So first, let's hear from one of our sponsors.
Sunday, red hot QBs take center stage. A showdown in the dog pound. And the stars are set to light up the late afternoon. Now that's a CBS Sports Sunday.
Well, Proppy, I know you and I play each other in multiple fantasy leagues this week, and there will be a lot of Olave Garden mentions or sightings in said matchups. But let's talk about a tight end. And let's go to Miami, a guy that is getting a lot of run the last few weeks. But now Tua is back, and we know he doesn't love the tight ends as much. Or does he? Tell us.
Yeah, well, that might not factor in very much, and I'll explain why. But, we're talking about Jonnu Smith here. Jonnu Smith's had a fascinating career. Wherever this guy plays, he always winds up on the field and playing a significant role in the offense. And really what I've been encouraged by the last 2 weeks is 78% and 76 route participation in back-to-back weeks. That is a very good number for a tight end. Also, if we start to look at Jonnu Smith's season-long numbers, they point to consistent involvement when the guy has been on the field. That's why I love him to go over 2.5 receptions. I know this one is juiced. I'd also consider taking a shot here, maybe scale down to half a unit at 3.5 at plus money. But I'm really just been encouraged by Jonnu Smith. If we look at the target profile, he's being targeted heavily in the splash zone. I believe more so than any tight end in football, which is very good. He also has a very healthy 14% first read targets per route run. That's, again, a very good number, 90th percentile for tight ends. 23% targets per route run, a 1.75 yards per route run. These are all very good numbers, 90th and above percentile at the position. A 68 open score, that's 93rd percentile. And when I mentioned he's not necessarily, traditionally, yes, he's a tight end, but running out 54% of his routes out of the slots. Really, they're utilizing him as basically a big slot receiver in this Miami offense, who's really lacked a third option in the passing game. I know Achan has been catching a lot of balls, but Jonnu Smith has carved out a significant role. He's on the field for nearly every single drop back, and he's just been productive, and he gets a lot of passes thrown his way when he's on the field. So this 2.5 number should have never dropped. That's why I'm willing to take on significant juice here. Again, I like it at 3.5 at plus money, but yeah, considering his role and involvement in this offense right now, 2.5 is just at least one reception too low. So really like Jonnu Smith, and he's certainly carved out a significant role in this Miami passing attack, and what should be a matchup where they should be passing as well, potentially trailing to Buffalo.
Now, I have a play for Tua later in the show. We'll talk about that. Once again, you learn, as I told Proppy over text the other day, when you're with the best, you learn from the best. And so I'll tease that prop a little bit later. It's not something I would have usually done. But Uncle Dave, my prop, I don't want to tease it that much, does kind of have synergy with yours next one here with Jaylen Waddle. And I guess you can say that yours and Proppy's have some synergy as well. What are you thinking for Waddle this week?
Well, first of all, just one other point I'd like to make about Jonnu is that he actually lost out on some targets last week to Julian Hill, who's kind of an H-back type of player for Miami, and he's not expected to play this week. I'll double check on that and make sure. The one guy that could come back for Miami that could kind of ruin the party for Jonnu is River Craycraft. He hasn't played yet this year, but he's somebody that could work more as a number 3 receiver and potentially take some work away from Jonnu. Not to say that Jonnu can't still hit, even if Craycraft plays. Really, it's Julian Hill that would excite me. If he's out, Jonnu's number should go up. Now, I don't like what I've seen from Jaylen Waddle pretty much all year long, and you can go back to last year. I've talked about it on Fantasy Football Today, how there is this track record of Waddle, Tyreek, Achan, Tua. When they're all on the field, Jaylen Waddle's the odd man out. So I'm taking the under on his receiving yards against a good Buffalo defense. 51.5 is the number. The line is minus 115. That's from BetMGM. He's been under this. This is Jaylen Waddle we're talking about. Under in 6 straight games. Now, granted, there's been some quarterback issues, and that's part of the reason why he's been under. But still, even in week 2, Tua played most of the game for the Dolphins. Waddle didn't get there. That was against Buffalo. He's been under 50 receiving yards in 4 of 6 career games against Buffalo. And this is the stat that I really focus in on. And I might start making this stat a little bit more of something that I look for fantasy purposes. I'm just trying it out with this prop. He's had a 17.6% target per route run rate with Tua last week. He was at 17.2 with Tua in week 1. And over Tua's snaps in week 2, it was 17.4. So he's right around 17%. That's a consistency. And I wondered, if he's around 17%, how have other receivers that are getting targets at that type of rate done against Buffalo this year? Here's what I found out. I'm taking a breath for this one. Every wide receiver with a target per route run rate of under 19% against the Buffalo Bills this year has had under 50 yards in the game. Every single one. In fact, only wide receiver who had a target per route run rate under 21% against Buffalo, and still had over 50 yards, was Alan Lazard, and he caught a Hail Mary against the Bills.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm ready to take this under. I really like that stat. Probably more of a half unit play than a full unit play, but Waddle has been disappointing all year. I expect that to continue.
How low would you go, Uncle Dave? 49.5. Okay, so yeah.
Did we lose Dave's audio there? Because I couldn't hear him.
Yeah,
49.5.
Okay, there we go.
You couldn't hear me, or the flush was too loud? It
was a combination of the two. I wanted to point out I did peek at the Miami Dolphins practice report. Julian Hill and Craycraft are both ruled out for this weekend. So I thought I saw
Craycraft as questionable, but I might be crazy.
I think something happened within the last hour that he is going to be out.
All right, I'll double check.
Mike McDaniel commented that he's unlikely to play.
Well, that would probably mean that he's not going to play.
Yeah.
Tee up some Jonnu Smith in that case. All right,
fire up the Jonnu, boys. Let's go.
Fire up the Jonnu, fade the Jaylen. That's what you just learned in the last 5 minutes. All right.
Always make your picks from the toilet.
You don't have to do that, guys. You don't.
Yeah, we're not recommending that.
It's worked for me.
Proppy, you're an Eagle fan. We're starting to see good things. Jalen Hurts went way over that yardage prop I gave last week because
I knew you were going to plug yourself there.
Of course, I had to. The wins are few and far between. Hey, so the reason Jalen Hurts playing so well right now is because he's got A.J. Brown, his number 1 receiver, back in the fold. Yeah. What are you thinking about A.J. Brown against a horrible Jacksonville secondary this week?
I'm going to apologize in advance because I'm going to take a little time with this one because I really like this one. Actually, I'm going to ask producer Jake right now to bump this up to a 1.5 unit play for me. But it's going to be A.J. Brown to go over 75.5 receiving yards, okay? First and foremost, we've got the matchup. If you guys have been following me, listening along, or betting props yourself, we know that there is no worse pass defense in the NFL than the Jacksonville Jaguars. They are the matchup. They are a massive pass funnel. Okay, look at the advanced metrics. 32nd in EPA per dropback, 27th in dropback success percentage, 32nd in first read EPA, 29th in pressure rate, 32nd in blitz rate. They play more man coverage than any defense in the NFL and double team at one of the lowest rates in the league. That is a recipe for opposing number 1 wide receivers to go absolutely bonkers, which has been the case all season. It's been arguably my most profitable betting angle, and if you've been following along, you've surely seen this pattern and trend, and we've taken advantage of it together. Now let's look at A.J. Brown, who's quietly having an absolutely stellar season. Had A.J. Brown not missed those 3 games right now, he'd be on pace for something close to 1,800 receiving yards and 15 receiving touchdowns. He's been phenomenal. His numbers, 96% route participation, 36% target share. That trails only Malik Nabers. 54% air yard share. That's first in the NFL by a significant margin. 23% targets per route run. 3.88 yards per route run. First in the NFL 14.1 yards per target. That is first in the NFL. He's been absolutely incredible, partly because he's a phenomenal talent. But this Eagles offense right now is firing and humming on all cylinders, and they're presenting so many problems for opposing coordinators who, if they try to sell out to stop the pass, Saquon Barkley is absolutely gashing opposing defenses. So they really don't know what to do. They're dropping an extra safety in the box and playing single high safety. I want to shout out a guy named Pat Kerrane, who's someone I follow closely, who gave some incredible information that I'm going to recite here regarding this. So right now, Jacksonville actually plays more single high safety than any defense in the NFL, and they are absolutely atrocious when playing it. And again, if we look at A.J. Brown throughout his career, 5.37 yards per route run against single high safety. Okay, let me put that number into perspective. A.J. Brown leads the NFL this season in yards per route run at 3.88. So nearly double that against single high safety coverage throughout the course of A.J.'s career. That number only trails Tyreek Hill in the NFL. So absolutely phenomenal, mouth-watering matchup for A.J. Brown, who can go absolutely nuclear if Jacksonville can just push Philly a little bit. Even if they don't, I expect him to go over this, but A.J. Brown has 200-yard upside in the event that this game is a shootout. Again, we're looking at the potential range of outcomes here. I'm not predicting that's going to happen. I'm saying that's within the potential range of outcomes when these two teams meet. If Jacksonville is able to score on this Philly defense and push the Eagles into a higher volume passing attack. But even without that, this number is significantly closer to A.J. Brown's floor than his ceiling. Defenses have no idea how to stop this Eagles offense right now. A.J. Brown is playing fantastic football. He's in an elite system, and he gets the best matchup in the NFL in the Jacksonville Jaguars.
How about that? I mean, when Proppy says the word nuclear, we go ladder time, right? We ladder. He set up to 200 yards, Uncle Dave. I mean, I know you have A.J. Brown high in your rankings. Are you that high like Proppy is?
I think anything's possible against Jacksonville, but the first step in that is going to be having to take like a 20-yard pass to the house, and he needs to have a monster long reception in order for that to even come close. I don't think it'll be on volume. So if he's going to get, I think 200 might be a little too crazy, but a $125 is not out of the realm of possibility. He is a top 4. He's 4th for me in my full PPR rankings this week. Not that you'd consider sitting A.J. Brown. 3rd in non-PPR. The guy's absolutely a terror against opposing defenses.
And there you have it. All right. Uncle Dave, it's now you and me. Probably we'll get you in here for a few of them. But
okay, I'm going to go flush the toilet. I'll be back. I'm just kidding.
Uncle Dave, Monday night.
What toilet are you on if you got to get up to flush it?
He's in a fancy place. We know that. We just
unknown indeed.
Yeah, just
it's
Google
actually
his
a
shirt.
bidet.
Well, there you go.
Who knew with other questions? Let's move along here. Right?
If you're new to the Friday Prop Show, I promise we don't talk about bathrooms every time. All right, so Uncle Dave, Monday Night Football, we have the Buccaneers at the Chiefs. The Chiefs absolutely stifle running backs in the ground game. However, Rachaad White is a different type of running back. So what do you have in mind?
We're talking about what he does through the air. And so this is a prop taking the over on his receiving yardage. And it's pretty low. It's 20.5. I found it at -115 at BetMGM. He's gone over this number 3 of his past 4 games. He has at least 3 catches in each of his past 3 games and 5 of his past 7 games. That should give you an idea of how consistent he is in this role for Tampa. And he figures to be in that exact role against a Chiefs team that usually plays with the lead. And what does that mean? It means the quarterback throws a little bit more. And in the case of last week, the quarterback threw a lot. Baker Mayfield leaned on his running backs and tight ends in his first game without both Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. I think something like that will happen here. So I wanted to check and see, how does Kansas City do against running backs out of the backfield? Do they shut them down? Are they terrible? They lean toward the latter there. You see, they are bottom 10 in defensive pass EPA on targets to running backs. They give up a 7.8 yards per catch average, 5 running backs have at least 21 plus yards against Kansas City this year, including guys that specialize on passing downs like Justice Hill and Alexander Madison. So I like Rachaad White to go over 20 receiving yards. That's really what it is. But there's a ladder in play here as well. I think that he could get north of 30 and 40 receiving yards as Tampa Bay tries to compete in this game. The Chiefs ultimately blitz Baker Mayfield and play their safeties back. They can rotate between those two things, and that'll both opens the door to Rachaad White getting a lot of playing time and a lot of targets from Baker Mayfield.
So, Uncle Dave, just at minus 110 or minus 115 odds, how high would you play it at those standard odds?
I don't think I'd go any higher than minus 120, but I wouldn't mind taking over 23.5 at those odds, minus 110, minus 115. So I'll play it up. Honestly, I'll probably play it up to like over 24.5 receiving yards.
Okay.
With
All
the
right,
latter being an option.
Yeah, I don't like running back receiving props. I've talked about this ad nauseum. I think they're a really high variance commodity. That being said, Rachaad White does have a fairly consistent target floor. I don't hate this prop. I did want to point out, though, however, when we're talking about the Chiefs' defense, their linebackers, I mean, it's a very good defense, but their linebackers really struggle in coverage. So if there is a defense to exploit for running backs, potentially, I do think the Chiefs are a matchup to target.
Fair enough. All right, let's get to running back props. Dave talked about Rachaad White from a receiving point of view. So let's go to running backs. Now, I know that J.K. Dobbins played at Ohio State, but he's going back to Ohio as a member of the Chargers. He's still a fade for me this week. I am going under 71.5 rushing yards at minus 115. And that is because the Cleveland Browns have only allowed one running back over this total all year. And it was last week. And it was Derrick Henry, who, by the way, leads the league in rushing yards. He only had 73 yards. I mean, Derrick Henry is light years better than J.K. Dobbins. No offense to J.K. Dobbins. He's a fine NFL player. Derrick Henry's playing at an elite level. So I'm playing the under here. Dobbins just isn't breaking tackles. He has the 8th highest stuff rate since week 3. He's under 60 yards rushing in 4 of his last 5. And I think L.A. now with Quentin Johnston back, you have Ladd McConkey, you have Hayden Hurst back. Will Dissly's gotten some run. The short passing game might be more effective for the Chargers than just handing it to J.K. Dobbins, especially against this difficult Browns unit. And Uncle Dave, I know you're giving me that look, but I saw your rankings this week. You had him at like, what, 21 or 22? Which is tail end of
lower. Yeah, he's getting lower because the efficiency has gone down. I spent a lot of time working on J.K. Dobbins this week, both for fantasy and for this show. And the initial reaction was to take the over. 2 reasons why. Number one, 2 good linebackers are not going to play for the Browns. Jordan Hicks and J.O.K. Owosu-Koromora is his last name. These are good run stoppers, and they're huge parts of this Cleveland Browns run defense. The other thing about it, and this is something that I kind of alluded to before the show, there are a lot of lines this week that I think are designed to take your money. And I can't – I don't want a showdown, but the fact that Dobbins has a line this high, and you've said it, after Derrick Henry had 73 yards last week, it smells fishy to me. So
it does, but sometimes you got to bite. You got to bite when they're throwing the hook. I'm taking the bait. I'll take the bait. Proppy, what do you have to say about this one?
For those of you listening audio only, I just want to state that a single tear rolled down my cheek when EC gave out an under and provided some great supporting evidence as well, and didn't cite the fact that J.K. Dobbins' previous 3 matchups against the Tallahassee Titans, he went under 34 yards. So phenomenal work, EC. I'm just happy to see a pick given with such great conviction, and I thought the analysis was spot on, and it was just a great under. So just wanted to tip the cap. I see the evolution of EC's handicapping progressing in front of our very eyes, and as a proud papa, I couldn't be more proud.
Thank you, Proppy. I appreciate that. With that said, Uncle Dave's onto something here. The line at other places, I've seen 72.5. So, normally I've seen some line movement. Like last week on the 3 plays that I hit, I saw line movement go in my direction. I was like, all right, I'm feeling pretty good about this one. I will be curious to see what happens closer to game time on Sunday with this Dobbins prop. I may wait. If it goes up a little bit, I still like the under, but Uncle Dave is right. There is a fishy element to it. Now, there's not a fishy element to DeAndre Swift in Chicago. And I had no idea about this, Uncle Dave. We saw that big run against Washington last week. But DeAndre Swift, the last month, has actually been phenomenal, like top 10, top 5 fantasy running back phenomenal.
And he's the key to the Chicago offense. You can legitimately look at see, now you got me thinking about JK. You can legitimately look at DeAndre Swift's rushing and tie it to when Chicago's offense really started to get Caleb Williams started to play better. I think the Bears know that, and I think they're going to lean on DeAndre Swift, especially against Arizona. So I'm taking the over on his rush yards, 64.5. Saw it at minus 111 at BetMGM. He's been over this mark in each of his past 4 games, literally every game since his week 4 breakout. And he's had at least 16 carries in each game, meaning if he hits that number, then all he has to do is average 4.1 yards per carry, and he's going over. The Cardinals have allowed 4.7 yards per carry on the season to running backs, and they've given up at least 4.6 yards per carry to 7 different running backs this year. This run defense isn't particularly good. I think Swift can take advantage. Last but not least, a running back has had at least 65 yards in all but 2 games against Arizona. That's just another way of doing the math that I did. The bottom line is that DeAndre Swift should have good opportunities to lead this Bears run game. To me, this is a very easy over.
Yeah, and I really like him in DFS this week as well. There's good value there if you look at the different DFS sites. I don't think he's priced the way he has been playing in the last month, which is really, really good. So I just want to point that out. Coming up next, Uncle Dave and I have some unders, plus it's time for a field goal prop that I promise isn't super juiced after we hear from one of our sponsors.
CBS Sports HQ, giving you college football coverage unlike anyone else.
We're talking Big Ten.
Pre- and post-game coverage.
Are you encouraged with the way that this team responded?
Along with breaking news.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
Highlights and expert analysis.
That streak could be in jeopardy here.
Sure. What was your main takeaway from this game? How impressive was his domination?
That really changed the football game.
Let's go ahead and have some more fun.
Another wild ending.
The chaos continues.
Turn to CBS Sports HQ.
All right, Uncle Dave, I have a trivia question for you before we go on any further. Right. No cheating. Can you name the 2 leaders in the NFL in made field goals as of right now?
Oh, not a chance.
Okay. Proppy, you got it?
I could
Any
guess.
guesses? Yeah, let's hear what you guys got.
Well, does this include last night's game? Because one of the kickers is Kaimi.
I was going to say Keanu Fairbairn, one of them.
It is not. It is that is incorrect. These 2 guys have 23 made field goals. One of them is Chris Boswell. Can you figure out the other one?
Off the top of my head,
Harrison Butker.
It's a good guess. The answer is Austin Seibert from the Washington Commanders, who, by the way,
that's a good one.
Yeah,
did not play in week 1 because he wasn't on the roster yet. And then
you bet on him a lot. You see,
I have not. I actually didn't know this myself till I started doing some research. You know, his first game prop was against the New York Giants, and he had 7 field goals. Oh, by the way. So I just want to point that out. 7 field goals there for Austin Seibert. So you know what? I'm going to give it a shot this week at minus 105. The Giants have given up 2+ field goals in 4 of 8 games, including 7, as I mentioned, to Seibert in week 2. So he's over this in 6 of 7 games as a member of the Commanders. I'm going 3 made field goals this week at a good price of minus 105. All right, Uncle Dave, let's get to quarterback props here. You and I have some unders. I know it's going to shock Proppy. We'll let you start first.
The first one is going to be near and dear to Propstarz' heart, and that's going to be Jalen Hurts under 26.5 pass attempts at minus 106. And this is another example of a line that's designed to take your money. I figure the game script will help here, as Hurts shouldn't have to throw many passes to help the Eagles beat the Jaguars. And Hurts has been under this number in 3 straight games. But here's the crazy part. Every single quarterback that Jacksonville's played against this year has thrown at least 27 passes. 27. Exactly 1/2 attempt under this under. It's as if the odds makers wanted you to know that information and take the over, the juiced over, I might add. But because of how the Eagles operate, and Proppy could back me up on this one, and because I think the game will be a blowout, and the Eagles are 7.5-point favorites, I don't think Hurts is going to have to do much throwing in the game. That might hurt A.J. Brown's chances of getting 200 yards. I don't know if that hurts his chances to get 125, much less whatever the prop was, on 99.5 for crying out loud. The dude can do that. Jalen Hurts under 26.5 pass attempts, minus 106, by the way.
All right. In honor of Proppy as well, I'm going with an under as well. Tua Tagovailoa under 249.5 passing yards at minus 115. So the Bills are just one of 3 teams allowing fewer than 10 yards per completion this season. And there were only 2 quarterbacks over this versus Buffalo this season, both on the road. In fact, in the last 11 games at home, only 1 quarterback has gone over this number against the Bills. Tua is under in 6 of 8 against Buffalo, and his only overs have been in extreme, and I mean extreme blowouts. I don't expect that to be this Sunday. So I'm taking the under 249.5 for Tua. Now, if you want to play different props with the quarterbacks, touchdown, receivers, running back, touchdown, it's always a fun thing to do. And we all love to play our first touchdown, the gems, which I never hit. But those of you, if you want to have a second chance at those, BetMGM has you covered. We've all had our first touchdown bet called back before, and BetMGM is giving you a second chance. With BetMGM's Pro Football Second Chance, place any first touchdown scorer bet. If your player doesn't score first but scores second, get your entire stake back in cash. No opt-in required. Here's how it works. Place a pregame straight first touchdown score bet in any NFL game. And if your player scores the first touchdown in the game, win your wager as normal. If your player scores the second touchdown in the game, you'll get your stake back in cash. It's that simple. Log into BetMGM for more details. All right, it is time for the recap screen, and then we get Proppy and Uncle Dave to make their favorite picks. So let's break it all down here. Proppy has Jamar Chase over 83.5 receiving yards. A.J. Brown over 76.5 receiving yards for 1.5 units. Malik Nabers over 68.5 receiving yards for 1.5 units. And Jonnu Smith over 2.5 catches at minus 175. It's a lot of juice, but he feels pretty good about that one as well. Uncle Dave has Jalen Hurts under 26.5 passing attempts, which you just heard. DeAndre Swift over 64.5 rushing yards. Rachaad White over 20.5 receiving yards. Sam LaPorta over 41.5 receiving yards, and that's a 1.5 unit play. Jaylen Waddle under 51.5 receiving yards, and Chris Olave over 5.5 receptions at plus 110. I'm going with Tua under 249.5 passing yards. J.K. Dobbins under 71.5 rushing yards. Chris Olave over 67.5 receiving yards for 1.5 units, and Austin Seibert over 1.5 made field goals. All right, Proppy, what is your favorite play of Uncle Dave's this week?
Yeah, first of all, I feel left out and disappointed I'm not in the under club with both of you, EC in the under club without me here. So, yeah, I got to get some unders out, although I will say we faded Dalton Schultz last night for those of you that watched the pregame stream. So that was a success. But I will have some additional picks out this weekend for sure. But my favorite pick from Dave is going to be the under on Jaylen Waddle. Not something I was considering, but I thought Dave made a very compelling argument for that pick. Certainly sold me on it. So I like that look quite a bit. And then EC, J.K. Dobbins under 71.5 rushing yards. He has really kind of hit a wall, in my opinion. The efficiency is cratered. Tough matchup, even if those linebackers are out that Dave mentioned. And it's just beautiful to see half of EC's plays going under. So tip of the cap to my buddy EC. And J.K. Dobbins goes under, and Jaylen Waddle goes under.
When you work with the best, you have to eventually learn from them. It just takes me a little bit longer, but I am learning. Uncle Dave, what is your favorite play of Proppies this week?
I like the Jonnu over, but I like it if it's 3.5 receptions and not 2.5. I wouldn't lay that juice for 2.5, but at 3.5, especially if there's plus money involved, happy to take that, especially with the information that we got on the show today, that no River Craycraft, no Julian Hill. These are good things for Jonnu Smith. And I also want to tip my proverbial cap to UEC with Tua. I like the under on those passing yards. And listen, it doesn't mean that I don't love the Jonnu bet. I just don't think that the Dolphins are going to throw for a ton of yards against this Bills defense. I think this Bills defense is pretty good. And by the way, Von Miller's coming back. So that's somebody that could further pressure Tua, and that might make him get rid of the ball even faster than he already does. So any of those short area targets in play, oh yeah, Jonnu Smith would be. So everything kind of comes together and ties together nicely with how we view this Dolphins offense this week.
Well, and I think they're going to run. Devon Achane, if I said it right. I always mispronounce that. Thank you. I got that. Achane. I think he's going to have a big game whenever he plays with Tua. I had him last week, did pretty well. So look out for that, moving the ball on the ground. Just want to recap one last thing here. Talk about our overall records, because we do keep track on this show. Uncle Dave, 6 games over 500, up 3 units. He's 5 games over 500 and up 3 units.
I like it better when I was
500.
It's over.
Yeah, well, Proppy's 6 games over 500 and up 3 units. I'm 1 game under 500, but I'm still chasing 5 units, but I will get them back. I promise we will work harder to get them back. So I want to thank producer Jake. He does a great job as always. He is the best producer in the biz, and it's always a blast to work with him. For Uncle Dave and Proppy, I am EC. Thanks for watching. And as I always like to say, let's hit it big.
Hit it big!
Good luck.